What are the three trauma-driven behaviors that push people away, often without realizing it?
One is just plain avoidance. A lot of us are avoiding people unconsciously as a way to manage our stress and dysregulation. People who had trauma as kids have higher rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, reproductive disorders, autoimmune diseases. I started thinking, gosh, is there anything it doesn't touch?
What would you say are the biggest signs of nervous system dysregulation that people should look out for?
A lot of people are familiar with the outward one, the emotional dysregulation. What we can feel that other people don't necessarily notice is this sense of discombobulation.
I've heard you say that clutter can actually be a sign of trauma.
I think it is, yeah.
What's the connection there?
When you're dysregulated, your perception of space is not very good. Your awareness of what's in the room, what time of day is it?
Do you have a go-to strategy for calming intense emotions in the moment? Anna Runkle, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you, Max. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. I am a new fan. I'm a recent fan. And I just love the stuff that you're putting out on YouTube. It's all very impressive work, and I'm excited to celebrate with you your latest book, Connectability.
Thank you.
Well, I love to just dive straight into the deep end. I think this is such an important and timely book, given the polarity and the disconnection that many people are feeling today. So I think, I'm excited for this conversation. But I guess diving straight in, what would you say are the three trauma-driven behaviors that push people away, often without realizing it?
Well, one is just plain avoidance. A lot of us are avoiding people unconsciously as a way to manage our stress and dysregulation, because people just, it's kind of triggering dealing with people. So there's this tendency to subtly avoid them and say yes to an invitation and then cancel, or
It feels so good, though.
never make a commitment. Yeah, it feels like self-care when you're doing it, but if you do it all the time, you end up alone and your life is pretty hollowed out. So that's one of the things I help people with. Another one is lashing out. Lashing out is probably the worst aspect of dysregulation. It's part of emotional dysregulation. And, in dysregulation, it's a nervous system thing. We'll talk more about that. It's very much like why trauma causes problems. Everybody gets dysregulated sometimes, but emotional dysregulation is the one other people see because it hurts them, where maybe you feel a little bit slighted by something, you get interrupted, and what you say about it comes out way too strong and full of, rancor. And it ruins relationships. It costs a lot in life if you can't control that. And I would say the third thing is, when I really think about the three most important ones, it's letting bad people into your life. They have a way of taking up all the social space available. And so if you've ever had a toxic relationship or something, you can't really hang out with friends or let people get to know you. There's a lot to hide about what's going on. You're so busy shutting down your feelings that you can't really switch them back on for the rest of the people in your life. So that is a great big trauma-driven behavior.
Wow, that's a big one too, because I feel like toxic relationships, they have a lot of gravity in one's life. They typically, they dominate all other relationships pretty much. Yeah. So there's a tendency with people who had a lot of trauma as kids to have their life kind of filled up with angry people, troubled people, people who just bring a lot of drama into your life, people with addictions, which is one form of trouble, people who are outright abusive even. Yeah. Now, for people, I want to get into a clear working definition of CPSD, which you talk about. For people without CPSD, do they tend to be more leery of letting those kinds of people into their lives?
I think they do. Let's just call them healthy people, because people have their own problems. But people who don't have trauma wounds have a red flag detector, and it hasn't been switched off by a bunch of experiences that shut that part of you down. So they see somebody coming a mile away. So I remember the last time I got into a very ill-advised relationship, my friends were horrified, shocked. And then I knew that would be the case. So I would downplay it. I would minimize it. I was always trying to manipulate what they knew about what was going on, because I knew on some level I was being self-destructive. But it just seemed like it's just like, I have to. This is the only person for me. It was total trauma-driven thinking.
Yeah, and where did that come from? I know you have your own trauma story.
Yeah. Yeah, you want the story? Well, so I grew up in a commune in Berkeley in the late 60s and early 70s. And the ethos of the my mom had just gotten divorced, and she invited a bunch of people to come live with us. And they were really into drugs and alcohol like her. She was an alcoholic and an addict, and in those days, back in the olden days, they genuinely believed that if they could discard all the conventional sexual mores and things, everybody would be happy. And in all that thinking, I don't think people really thought about what that does to kids. It wasn't good for kids. And a lot of times, there wasn't food on the table. There wasn't food in the kitchen even. And there was a lot of chaos, people getting violent. And she had gotten divorced because she was in a relationship with my dad. They had a mutually violent relationship. So I grew up with a lot of that. And I had a pretty good adaptation as it goes, whereas some of my siblings sort of went into addiction themselves later. I went into, I'm going to make everything okay here. I'm going to take care of the baby, and I'll make it look good to the neighbors, and I'll go get some food from the lady up the street. And I worked out a deal with my third grade teacher that I could bring my little sister to class when she was a toddler all day, every day. These were the olden days. You could do things like that, but I'm really grateful for them. We just found a way to sort of get through it and survive. We had a friend who was a nurse who got us some antibiotics once when we had Rocky Mountain sputtered fever when we lived in Arizona. And we were really sick and we couldn't eat for 2 weeks, and just nobody was going to do anything about it. So the neglect was kind of extreme. And I've heard of worse, but it was enough. It was enough to develop complex PTSD, which is the kind that comes from chronic, ongoing exposure to stress.
Wow.
And the kind that we associate with combat people is an acute episode. Maybe they had one horrible battle. The complex means it just was going on and on and on, and it look at that. It's the ghost.
The energy in your words.
I know.
Yeah.
Bam! But they, probably a lot of people who end up doing combat had some childhood trauma. They have a certain kind of toughness, maybe numbness going on that makes that seem easier to do. Other people, I'm sure, are called to it. They're great at it. But a lot of people who come back have complex trauma. It just went on and on. People who live in a war could get it. Somebody who's in an abusive relationship could get it. Mostly it comes from childhood, though, complex PTSD.
Now, when you say complex, that doesn't necessarily mean complicated, which is, I guess, one definition of the word. If something's complex, right?
I think it means it's just a lot of things.
A lot of things, as opposed to, so CPSD differs from PTSD in the sense that PTSD is sort of like, you can kind of trace it back to one acute trauma.
Different sources say slightly different things. And I'm not a doctor or therapist. I really go on, well, what do I notice? What do my people tell me? And I like having a YouTube channel is great because thousands of people just tell me all day, this is what it's like for me. So I kind of have a good intuitive sense of what it is. But it's there's symptoms that everybody knows about for traumatized kids. It's depression, anxiety, maybe troubled relationships. Then, later in the 90s and 2000s comes out this study that goes, also people who had trauma as kids have higher rates of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, reproductive disorders, autoimmune diseases, dementia, learning disabilities. I started thinking, gosh, is there anything it doesn't touch? And there's literature out there that's like, yes, it's terrible. I learned to have a filter. You have to ask, when agencies are sort of pushing this idea that it's so terrible, because of how they get funding, they're going to push an idea that they have a solution to. So I sort of put all that aside. I just go, what have I noticed? So I noticed that a lot of the ways that are common that trauma is dealt with, which is talk about it, focus on what happened, how sad it was. It's probably important, but it's not the answer. It's not the thing that makes you better. It's probably a step towards feeling better. But really, what happens after childhood trauma, because here's the thing, complex PTSD causes what is in effect a neurological injury. Not every kid will get it, but if you do get it, it's like an injury. If you were neglected, I was neglected. My mom took off when I was a month, and then she came back. Nobody knew if she was coming. She'd come, she'd go. I don't remember it, but it explains certain things that have been hard for me in my life. So what that can do to a baby is they're just not getting the neurological stimulation and the eye contact and talking and goo-goo and I love you all the time. A baby needs it like a lot. And so when you don't get it all the time, your development is delayed. Some people would say it's ruined, but I don't know. I feel like I and so many people I know, like we can grow that. We can learn to become connectable. Yeah.
It's like not feeling safe at a really pivotal time, I think, in one's development.
Yeah. It's funny. I think safety is sort of like water for fish. You don't even know what is safety. It's not really the axis that ever comes to mind for me, but yeah, it's safety, of course, that people are there for you. But also your mirror neurons aren't developing at the right rate. So the part of you that's made to connect with other people might not have come together in the right speed or process. So I think of it like all injuries, some of them they can heal. Like if you scrape your skin, it will come back. You don't even have to know how to heal skin. It will do it for you. If you lose a leg, you might have to get a prosthesis. You'll have to do some rehab. You can still live a great life, but you're going to have to kind of have a workaround. And I think trauma is like that. And you won't really know what is fixed and what is changeable without just going for it. Just try. Just do what you can.
With the degree of trauma that you experienced, I mean, how were you able to maintain your fortitude and your resourcefulness and your resilience when so many others go down the path of numbing that trauma with substances and other self-destructive behaviors? Yeah,
there's a lot of ways to numb it. Two of them that have nothing to do with substances as we think of them would be romance, troubled romance. It's very like captivating and consumes you. Or another one is anger, like going online and just like hating everybody and, I can't believe it. That is an escape. That's an escape from whatever you're feeling. It's not even, the people aren't even in your life. And, we see that going on with people and it's making them go mad.
Oh yeah, hurt people.
Yeah. So you have to have some part of you that's outside of that to attend to it and say, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do something different. And I didn't get through it. Like my whole life wasn't resilient. I suffered a lot. I had some down spells, and I probably would never have found techniques that worked for me, except that things came to a head when I really wasn't doing okay. And I thought I couldn't stay alive. I just thought I couldn't. I thought I had come to the end of my rope. And then luckily something came along that worked.
And what was that?
Yeah. Well, it was the techniques I teach in my books and on my YouTube channel and in my free course. And it's just like my life's mission. I'm trying to show people. It's a pretty simple but a little bit nuanced writing technique followed by simple meditation. It sounds really simple, right? What could it do? But it does a lot. And it's very different. What had happened to me was I was sort of holding it together pretty well. As a person who overfunctioned as a coping mechanism, I looked good, I had a job, I was pretty. But my ability to connect with people was getting frayed. And I will just say this, when you're 21 and a pretty girl and you're kind of mean to guys, they'll put up with it. And when you're 30, they won't.
Makes them want you even more.
Yeah,
some guys.
Yeah, some of them actually, some of them. But so I had got to, my relationships were fraying. I wasn't having good friendships. I was kind of betraying people a lot. I was checked out. I was very self-centered, which is normal when you have trauma symptoms. It's hard to remember even. It's so nice to be that free of it. It was a long time ago. But I think I was I was self-centered in my relationships. I had this belief, and I was in therapy for years. I had this belief if people would talk to me and help me with why I was feeling sad, it would fix me. And if I didn't feel okay, they had failed in their job. And so I was always putting pressure on people. It's like, why won't you listen to me? Why don't you care about me? And eventually people would go, look, I just can't deal with you anymore. And I thought that made them bad people. So for a while, I was kind of in this game. And then I got randomly attacked on the street. I got beaten unconscious by a gang. They just jumped out of a car and beat me unconscious and broke my face and my teeth and my ear and
oh my God.
Yeah. And that gave me PTSD. And at the same time, about 10 months before that, like somebody I really loved ended it with me. I was still very depressed about it. And then my mother died like the week after the assault. So it was a lot. I call it a trauma storm. Like in all of our lives, we have times when so much happens that you just can't really keep your head together. So I had PTSD, but this is 1994. They didn't recognize PTSD as something that people got, like some woman, And they had kind of an irrational thing. They said, your brain's not bleeding. You weren't raped. So what, go on, go back to work. And they said, go to therapy. And California gives you a bunch of money for therapy. So I had therapy 3 times a week. And we talked about it. But I was freaking out because the more I went to therapy, the worse I felt. And I know now, like, there's totally a reason for that. It's actually very normal if you have what I have. But I thought that I was a hopeless person. Like everybody, you're supposed to go to therapy. It should work, right?
And the more you went, the worse you felt.
Yeah, I would have to sit in my car for 45 minutes afterwards, just like shaking. I would be pretty put together when I got there. I'd have a list of things I wanted to talk about. I was trying to like make the most of the time. And then I would just be a wreck when I got out of there. And so I would tell the therapist, she goes, well, maybe you better talk to the doctor. I talked to the doctor and he gave me benzos. Here, you just need to calm down. All of these things. It just turns out, now we know, talking about a trauma is not always the best thing for everybody. A lot of people who had childhood trauma just totally dysregulate when they talk about it. It does need to be shared and validated, but there are ways of doing that that are not talking. And there are a lot of therapies now, like somatic healing and EMDR, and simply writing what the distress is that can bypass the triggers, the neurological triggers that throw you into dysregulation. Because when you're dysregulated, you can't really process information. You can't remember what was talked about. And something I remember about myself when I was dysregulated and trying to talk to a therapist, I'd come with a problem I was presenting as this big, and I'd feel like it would just like get bigger and bigger in my mind until I was just like, And they go, well, we'll talk again on Thursday. And I would just go home and go, what the hell am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm like some weird person who I can't connect with people. My mother didn't want me, and I don't respond to therapy. I think I'm hopeless. So I knew some woman. I gave her a ride. I was in this like improv group at the time. Of course, all improv people, they're pretty traumatized, right? And she was so funny, but I gave her a ride, and I chose her to just confide in her. And I just said, I think I can't go on, and just letting you know. And she said, come in. I'll show you what I did. And she was this very rough character with tattoos, and she was much younger than me. She had lived on the streets in the Tenderloin of San Francisco as a teenager. And she got sober because she couldn't keep alcohol down anymore at the age of 17. I know, she was a heavy case.
Wow.
And but she was very unhappy in AA. She was so full of anxiety and anger, she couldn't get along with people. And this lovely woman stepped into her life and said, do you want to see this thing? And showed her what she later showed me. And it was a way to express the fearful, resentful thoughts and feelings on paper. And it was a 12-step thing. So it was like you say, God, I have fear, that I'm never going to be okay. I'm resentful at myself because I have fear. I shot my mouth off. Fear I'm going to get fired. Fear if I get fired, I'll really be on the edge. And you go on, and then the sign-off is borrowed from the 11th-step prayer and 12-step of please remove these fears and resentments, and a little more about asking for guidance to be who you're supposed to be and to get the power to do that. And when she showed it to me, it's so funny because I was so hopeless, but I was like, ooh, this sounds very religious to me. I don't like it. And she's just like, well, take it or leave it. So I took it. I just tried it. And by morning, I wrote all night. I went home about 5 a.m. I slept. I woke up and I just felt okay. I just felt kind of peaceful. Something had happened. And she said, keep doing it. Call me when you want. You can read me what you wrote. And I called her and I read it to her, and she helped me a little bit with the format where I'd gotten it wrong, and it's very specific. And then she gave me just a little bit of like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Girls like us, right? Haha. And we just laughed, and I couldn't believe I was laughing about these problems. I just got lighthearted. I just couldn't wait to do it again. It was so helpful. So within 2 weeks, I was okay. I hadn't solved all my life problems. I had a lot of problems, but I don't think I had PTSD anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, my mind was just 100% focused, like never before in my life. And I don't think I was an ADHD kid or anything, but I was a neglected kid who watched a lot of TV. I wasn't great at paying attention. And suddenly I could just sit, and I still had my job, and I was in a business meeting, and for an hour I could hear what everybody said. I heard everything. I wasn't thinking, what am I going to say, or what's she wearing, or I hate that lady. I was just like listening, and then at the end I said what I thought, and people were just stunned because I made so much sense. They were like, they didn't say it that day, but later they were like, that Anna, she's a visionary. Because I could synthesize information.
You took back your power.
Well, you could say that. I never had power. I got power, and I got the power to focus. And I had an intelligent mind, but trauma and trauma symptoms will take your IQ down 30 points, I'll tell you. And it was a very quick process where I got my brain back. And then it was a long process to learn how to be a person, how to live life, how to stop making the same trauma-driven mistakes. And so in my YouTube videos, in my courses, my coaching, my webinars, my retreats, my books, everything, I'm always teaching people, okay, step by step, this is what you do. I've worked it out for you the hard way. Hopefully it'll be faster for everybody else. And now I have the pleasure of watching other people have that same kind of release from the just the heaviness and distortion of all that fear and resentment in their minds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you that therapy is not one size fits all.
No.
But it's often discussed as such in that
It
way.
is. You just need a good therapist, but there's not really a definition to that. Some people are very gifted at it, but it's funny that, well, I think about 15% of my audience, and I got almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube. I think about 15%, they are therapists and doctors. Most of them come for themselves. They need help too. And most of those also share it with their clients and patients. So a lot of the people who come to me for paid things, they say, my therapist referred me and said I should take this thing. So that's really nice for me. And my work has also been adopted by the Royal College of Psychiatry in the UK and Australia and New Zealand to teach trauma-informed care of what's it like for a person like me? What does it feel like? That's turned out to be my knack, is I can really describe this is what it's like. And I had no idea that I really thought I was a unicorn of horrible stuff, that I just had unique problems that were unsolvable. When I got up on YouTube, thousands of comments would come back like, you've nailed it. This is what I have. Nobody's ever described it. And when you know that it's a thing, if it's a thing and it has a name and it's not your fault, like half the weight of the whole thing just comes off you. It's a really wonderful thing. So that's what keeps me motivated. People are like, it seems like you're overworking a bit. I'm like, I know. I know I need to keep it in balance. But, I don't know how long I get to be around, and I got so many people, I just want to make sure they know about this. Yeah.
No, it sounds very familiar to me. It sounds like the story of almost every girl I've ever dated. And no, my heart goes out to what you went through, but I'm just so in love with the reality that you were able to turn your life around and come out on the other side with all of these, incredibly empowering insights.
Yeah, I'm grateful too. I'm really grateful. My life is well beyond what I ever would have hoped for. And even today, I was driving around LA, I was coming over here to record this with you, sitting at a red light. People were honking. It was very LA, kind of hectic and stuff. And I was like, I'm so grateful. I'm just so glad, I'm just doing my thing. I'm doing my thing. And this is what I do for a living. My whole family is supported by it, and they work in it too.
It's incredible. I'm so glad, and I can totally understand why. What would you say are the biggest signs of nervous system dysregulation that people should look out for?
Well, there's, a lot of people are familiar with the outward one, the emotional dysregulation. But there's a lot that we feel that they can't see. And then there's a lot more, there's like an iceberg under there of things that you can't really feel. So what we can feel that other people don't necessarily notice is this sense of discombobulation, where your hands are clumsy, you're dropping things, you're tripping on things. And it comes and goes. Like, I've twice been evaluated for MS, and fortunately I don't have it. I was going through a period of dysregulation. That was before I knew. That's the name for what I had. But I would just go through these periods where my hands would go numb, and I would keep falling down the stairs. It sounds like something really bad. It is neurological, but it was just dysregulation. And I could get out of that state, it turned out, by using my writing technique and also using very simple physical things that help you get re-regulated again. Everybody gets dysregulated. sometimes. And almost everyone gets re-regulated eventually. But with trauma, traumatized people can get dysregulated more easily. They have a harder time coming out of it. It's a little more intense. It starts to feel like it's who you are. And so another sign is brain fog, just being very fogged. And again, it comes and goes. You'll have periods of sharpness, especially if adrenaline is up, which you see, this is why anger can feel so good and crises can feel so good, because it's like finally you pop up out of the fog or the depressed feeling. And then emotional dysregulation causes lashing out, freaking out, and running away. And so I think that you'll hear a lot online talk about avoidant people, but we always talk about the ones we dated. You know, they were so avoidant. And if we're always dating avoidant people, we're probably avoidant too. You know, but it's unconscious. Nobody really designs who they're attracted to. And so somebody who can't really commit, that's a form of avoidance. And always falling for somebody who can't commit makes sure you're not going to have to commit either. And sometimes I think that like the chasing of love, it's a bit of an escape. It's a form of escape. Or being obsessed on somebody you can't have, limerence, that's something I talk about a lot. That's a form of escape. Yeah, as well as, you know, eating a bunch of sugar or doing drugs, drinking, all that stuff. Everybody does what works for them to just like take the pressure off.
Why do we have those tendencies? Just they take us out of ourselves?
I think so. I used to smoke 2 packs a day for 16 years.
Whoa.
And I felt really bad about it, you know, except for the very beginning. Somebody told me, oh, you'll lose weight if you smoke a lot. And I did. And then then it stops working. And then nobody, you know, who wants to date a smoker? Once it was the 90s, like nobody did. And so for that reason, I kept trying to quit. And I had to try like 30 times. And I didn't quit successfully until I discovered this daily practice. And I had a way to calm my nervous system. And I think that's what any kind of escape or druggy thing is just, you're just trying to like regulate yourself. And nicotine does have medicinal properties for that. It's just that the side effects like ruin it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, nicotine's not good for you.
Yeah, nor the carbon monoxide and all that stuff, so.
No. Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Oh, this is it. Here's a little tidbit. When I smoked, I would quit. I'd do patches, so I was getting my nicotine, but I wasn't getting the carbon monoxide, and I craved, you know, cigarettes. And I realized what I was craving was oblivion. That's what I wanted. I want out. I just want out of all this. It's too much for me. And that I know is dysregulation. It's like when it's all just too much. That's dysregulation. So when you can learn to re-regulate, now we're talking. Then now you can stay regulated in any situation. Well, let's not say any situation, but most situations. There would be things that would probably mess me up. If people were just like, if I was surrounded by a crowd shouting at me, there'd be no way I could keep my nervous system together. I'm not that strong. But you can stay regulated through things. And when you're regulated, you can reason. Because literally when you're dysregulated, your left front cortex is like darkening down. It's just like, ooh. Your right front's getting very emotional. The left front's going, I can't think, which is exactly what it feels like. Can't think. So a lot of these truisms like what they call repetition compulsion, I'm iconoclastic. I question these things. I have been told, well, you're going for unavailable people because you're trying to recreate your childhood. And I would say, okay, really? You know, because I don't think that's what I'm doing. And now I'm like, of course it's not what I was doing. My reasoning powers were damaged, you know, were offline. And I would get into things that had a strong emotional impact for me. And it's not a choice. It's weird. When people say you just got to make good choices, it's like sometimes when we're in certain conditions neurologically, we're not making choices. We're just kind of bumbling along, you know, and not really knowing what we're doing, just looking for a feeling of security in anything. If it's cigarettes or some jerk or, you know, something, it's a port in a storm.
Yeah, and those can often lead to, those decisions made under duress can often lead to unintended consequences.
Trauma-driven decisions.
I've heard you say that clutter can actually be a sign of trauma.
I think it is, yeah.
What's the connection there?
Well, when you're dysregulated, your perception of space is not very good. Your awareness of like what's in the room, what time of day is it? You know, when you're in a good mental condition, you can sort of go, all right, I've let the laundry go long enough. I got to stop everything and do the laundry. When you're dysregulated, you don't necessarily get that clue. And plus, you're very tired all the time. And you're overwhelmed with merely having thoughts and feelings. So actually having to do tasks can feel more overwhelming. So it just piles up. But I used to notice I would drive around, you drive around in neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods, there's house, and then there's house where the yard is just full of crap. That was the house I grew up in, literally cars in the yard. My parents they were extremely educated, but cars in the yard, and dead plants and, toys and boxes and stuff all over the porch. Really messy, really embarrassing. And so I thought, when I was a kid, I thought, why are my parents so messy? So this often goes with drugs and alcohol. When you look at homeless encampments, some of them have this huge accumulation of trash. And it's some sort of, I think a lot of people magicalize it or try to excuse it, but it's like, it's drugs. Drugs are shutting off some sort of natural cue and urge and need to have order around you. I think visual order is so lovely. I'm not particularly orderly, but I love being in an orderly space. It calms me. It feels good to be. I don't, things like my husband puts his shoes in the walkway from the door to the bed. And I'm just like, I could trip on that in the middle of the night. And some people, he's just never fazed by something like that. And he's, me on the other hand, if I find an old piece of bacon in the silverware drawer, I don't like it. But it doesn't faze him or my son. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that's just life. But
what if someone's just saving bacon for later?
I don't think they are. I think it's very old. There's so many weird things, or the choices he makes about what drawer will he put something important in. It could be any drawer, and they're all full of stuff. So he just doesn't have a psychological need for order the way I do. But I make it sound like I'm a neat freak. I'm not. I just want to be able to get a can opener without a 10-minute quest for it. Because honestly, if I get frustrated about finding a can opener, it'll cost me. I feel like I sort of have a reserve of self-regulation. And the more I waste frustration on stuff like finding an object that could be in the same drawer, the more I'm sort of close to getting dysregulated over something else. When I make videos and then I also have meetings and talk to people or do a podcast or something, I can't do them on the same day. It's like two different parts of my brain. Do you have that?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the creative and the operational for me.
Yeah. And having conversations, it just taps me out after a while. I'm fairly extroverted, but if I have conversations, I can't write a script. So I just know these things about myself now, and I'm extremely productive in the end. So it works for me, but these are some things I've learned by understanding, I'm dysregulated. And if I'm dysregulated, there's no point in pushing through. I have to get dysregulated first. Nothing good comes from pushing through.
How do you prevent productivity from becoming an addiction in and of itself?
I really had that. That was my thing. Overfunctioning was my go-to. And in my early 20s, and I felt awful all the time. I just felt really lousy physically. I feel like 20 years younger now in my 60s than I did in my 20s. How do you? I don't know. I guess it gets painful enough that you have to do it another way. But I'm also somebody, I think my family would say, they all feel that I'm a little too, I work too much. Okay, I'll say it, workaholic. I'm Anna. Yeah, I'm a bit of a workaholic. So I don't know. To me, it just feels like you got to do this stuff, or it's all going to fall apart.
Well, I think to love what you do is one thing, and then for it to be an addiction is something else. Is it negatively impacting your life?
Yeah.
If it's not, then
I had a bunch of stressors happen last fall. It's been about a year. And I totally lost my productivity. I went into a brain fog. I gained 30 pounds. I couldn't come up with an idea to save my life. I just went down, and I've never exactly had that happen. It was a lot of stuff from different angles, and all of them kind of feeling like threatening to my livelihood, to my legitimacy, to my future. Like all of it was really threatening. So I don't blame myself for feeling down about it. And most of those things have not resolved. It's just that I just grew through it. I was just like, okay, everything's uncertain, threats exist. it's going to be okay, and that I would just persevere. And so what I love about these techniques is they allow me to just they just help me keep finding the way forward and the way forward. The worst thing I think about some aspects of our culture, of how we sort of like, I don't know, cherish our troubles a little bit, maybe, always almost like it's a badge of honor. I try not to do that. I would never wish trauma on anybody. I don't wish it on myself. I'm really glad I've been able to make something of it, but it's so important. It's so important to really just kind of hitch your mental wagon more to what you're trying, what your values are, what you hope to be, and try to just work on eliminating the behaviors driven by your old identity of somebody who's just like ruined and comes from the wrong side of the tracks and can't be blamed. And, I just had a lot of that. And
well, you get social brownie points, I think, especially these days in this country for projecting the perception of oppression.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I remember sort of playing the card before. When my first marriage broke up when my kids were little. And I was like always playing the single mom card. I'm a single mom. I'm so bedraggled. I can't be expected to bring anything to the potluck. I could have brought something to the potluck, but it just sort of became this thing. And I figured it out. And then there was a medical accident that caused me to be in and out of the hospital for 4 years, a surgical mistake on me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and it was very bad. And I had to go 44 times to the emergency room. And I could have sued, but I realized that if I engaged in a lawsuit, I would never get well. And I was left with this condition that I have since healed, that it wasn't expected to heal. But it healed when I just returned to my good old techniques. And I really just committed myself. It's like, I don't really care what happened. I just want to be better. I didn't want to be bogged down I know people who have gotten into like medical lawsuits or car crash lawsuits where if you get better, you could lose your case, and you end up with this like internal incentive to keep identifying with the hurt version of you. And I just thought that's probably what I would do, and I just can't take that risk. I told you about the crisis point when I was 30. Later, when I had my little kids, I first tried dating, and the guy that I started dating, 3 months into it, he's like, I have to confess something. I've been smoking heroin every day since you've known me. And I was just like, what?
Whoa.
What? And I can tell you now, there were red flags, but I didn't see them. And he was so nice, and he was helping me, and there were many complications about the whole thing. It was heartbreaking. It was terrible, and he did not survive his disease, and it was a catastrophe for my kids. But when I found that out, it was just like a really messy, high drama thing. I wanted to get out, and I couldn't really do it, and he kept making promises, and I'd spy on him to see if he went to meetings. The whole crazy thing, and when that happened, I knew like I have to stop everything. I have to go the next level now. And never bring this kind of trouble into the lives of my kids again. Yeah, they were just kids, and their mom was so upset.
That sounds so difficult.
Yeah. So I did it again, and I had a 2-year monastic period. And during that time is when I realized I don't really have good friends. I had a lot of friends, but none of them the kind who come and bring you a meal when you've had surgery, or the kind who come and have a memorial with you when your boyfriend has died. I didn't have that kind. And at work, they were supportive, but I just realized like my whole life is unstable because I don't have those kinds of relationships. So that's why I wanted to, after my first book, I wanted to dive in and say, okay, but the real, the heart of having a good life is to be able to connect with people for real.
Now, why do you think it is, if you had to, when tracing it back to your childhood, is it because chaos was your emotional home?
It's really hard to say. I wish I had an obvious answer. It's really kind of a mystery. Chaos was normal, but I think that that's a little too oversimplified about it. I think troubled people felt safe for me because when you fundamentally feel like you're kind of like less than everybody, you're damaged goods, you may look good on the inside, but sooner or later they'll see you're the crazy girl, There's this feeling of like, I remember like I'd get asked out or something by nice men who had it together and, were just sincerely asking me out on a date. And I remember thinking, ew, there's a square or something, just like, I don't know, ew. And it was just more attractive to me if somebody had a whole like kind of energy of pain about them and trouble. And I thought, why on earth would I like that? So the best, I sort of polled my audience. I'm like, why do we do that? Why do we sort of reject people who have a good life?
What isn't the allure of the bad boy? I mean, isn't
what is it?
Yeah.
But I think it's because the good boy makes us feel shame about ourselves, and that's uncomfortable. And the bad boy, you can't possibly be so bad that he would reject you. So you're safe. You're safe with him. And there's a little bit of kinship in people who have had hard pasts, but it's more than that. I think, I've learned a lot from people who, like, they're gay, right? And they were like, I fought it, but I realized I was gay. I'm like, yeah, I just have an attraction to people that I didn't decide on. But in my case, it's pathological. In my case, it's just going to cause nothing but heartache. So I decided, if that's my trouble, if I just can't avoid the bad ones, then I'm not going to have a relationship. I'm a mom, so that's just going to come off the table. And with the help of a mentor friend, I wrote down about 200 things, like, it's going to have to be like this, and it cannot be like this. And then I thought, what an impossible list. You'll never find anybody like that. But I just decided that's how it's going to have to be. And it had gotten, when that one guy died, I was just like, I will go to any lengths not to have this problem again. It was so painful. And so there was a couple years there, no dating, not a lot of friends, went to some meetings, was trying to recover my spirituality because I was really devastated by that death. It was kind of like turned me into a gray stone. I was just, ugh. And then took care of myself, really paid attention to my kids, being very present with them, having our routines, taking little bike rides together, going to the Y, just kind of doing good things. I gradually felt better, and I set these new standards for myself. And funnily enough, once I set the standards, the only person I ever dated is my now husband. It turns out there was one guy who did fit what I was talking about, and it wasn't crazy stuff. It was like, can't have a problem with drugs and alcohol, needs to love and accept me as I am, and I, given that I will, do my best, needs to love and accept my kids almost as if his own kids. They have a dad, so it's a little awkward, but like, kids are expensive, they're a nuisance, and he can never resent that. He's got to be like with me on doing it, and I got that, and he's great. And it's really healing to be in a good relationship. Very challenging for a person with attachment wounds. Like, we've had our moments where I was like a feral raccoon. I'm like, I don't know, just what you're saying. I think you're going to leave. I just think so. And gradually calming down, mostly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It reminds me of I guess this is a more masculine kind of take on the idea that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. That guys will say, I never want to be a part of any club that'll have me. Uh-huh. So I wonder, in the context of dating the so-called bad boy, it's like, conversely, when dating the good guy, well, maybe I don't deserve to be in this in this kind of relationship, or like, what does he see in me?
Yeah.
Or if he's,
there may be something deep under there, but you know what? It seems boring. And if you're addicted to drama as your way of coping with how sad you are and how fundamentally lonely you are, then a nice guy's not going to give you enough drama. I think that might be it. I think it's the drama. Drama feels like love. That's what it is. And I have a word for one of it. It's eroticizing abandonment.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and people talk about like makeup sex, that's eroticized abandonment, where it just like amplifies. But some people are like stuck in that mode all their lives. So it's like, oh, that's like the most intense that's true love. That's true love, where they leave you and then they come back, and that hour, that's the shit.
Wow. You're describing pretty much all of my relationships.
What's the attraction?
I guess I like the drama. I mean, I'm not, I have in my past is a litany of unsuccessful relationships, or not a litany, but I haven't really. Maybe I'm not being fair to myself. I tend to enjoy, like my friends will say that I like the girls who are kind of crazy in air quotes. That's what like my male friends will say. And the girls that I date, I mean, I wouldn't call them crazy. They're not crazy, but they all...
High drama?
Yeah, lots of drama.
Yeah.
You know, high maintenance, lots of drama. We fight, we get back together, we have makeup sex. And, you know, I feel like fighting is kind of there's obviously a line, you know, in interpersonal drama where like you obviously can't cross, like no physical violence, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like there is an adaptive aspect to fighting. You know, it's like a stress test on the relationship, and I think, you know, part of that is like makeup sex. I think that there's an adaptive role that can play.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that any relationship is perfect.
No, and a little bit of spice is no problem. But
yeah. I like a lot of spice. Apparently.
But when it's very, very spicy, what happens is your capacity to feel and connect with anybody starts to just get shut down.
Yeah.
It costs you a great deal to live that way. So there's a problem. There's a long-term cost. Plus the relationships don't tend to work out. And that horrible haunting ghost man off in the distance of like, you're going to be alone forever. You know, he's like, don't come closer. You know it's off in the offing, and being alone forever is like everybody's deepest fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a happy life requires more connection. And so I used to look at people who are good at it and I go, wow, they're so connectable. They have all that connectability. And to me, it was like this magic air where you know, people just want to be their friend. Everything's easy for them. They don't just go into their head and get all fraught about entering the room. And I thought, I just wish I could do that. And in the book, I tell the story of a woman I met in England. This is when before I was married to my first husband. And we barely knew each other. We got pregnant, and we didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. I decided what I was doing. And about 7 months into the pregnancy, he's like, all right, I'm in. Well, let's give it a go. And he brought me home to England to meet his family. And they were as nice as they could be, considering they'd never heard of me, you know. And there we were, and I was very pregnant. And I met his dad, and his dad reminded me of Austin Powers' dad, who was like Michael Caine. Do you remember that character? Hey, baby, I'm right. Very weird. And they have these little tiny cars, and this, you know, is the 90s, so they really had tiny cars. So we got into his tiny car, and there's like me and my giant stomach and my shabby clothes, and we go pick up his girlfriend, and she gets in the back seat with me. Everybody has to get out, and we have to like fold ourselves like praying mantises to get into the car. And she was so nice. She goes, hello, isn't it wonderful being pregnant? She's like 70 years old. And the men were being, frankly, kind of rude and dismissive. And they literally left me in the car once and forgot to help me get out. And I was stuck for like an hour and a half because I couldn't get out of the little tiny car by myself. So pregnant, I couldn't crawl out the window. Wow. Yeah, I was mad. I was like really mad. And she came in, she just had a way. She just instantly became my friend. She was charming. She had connectability. She goes, let's all go to my house. We'll play Scrabble. And the grown-ups, I mean, I was like 30, 35, but they were older, and they poured tall drinks for themselves, and we played Scrabble. But when we walked into her house, I was like, oh my God, it was a mansion. And then I found out who she was, and her last name was like this like famous brand name in the UK. She was like from the family, you know, a very old family, as they call them.
Wow.
And at that time, I used to fear wealthy people and thought they all hate you and they're mean and they're selfish and greedy and all that. She was so wonderful. She so had it going on. She made that day so much fun for me. And even though I had shabby thrift store clothes on, you know, they weren't maternity clothes, but I fashioned them into it with safety pins. You know, I was broke. I was with a guy who didn't really want to be with me. I was in a bad way. And she was great. And I was like her. I'm going to be like her. And I'm really grateful to her to just show me what that's like. I think sometimes the most successful people have that. When I was a comedian, I noticed that. When I did little tiny clubs or steakhouses in Reseda, you know, the people weren't very nice. But Bud Friedman at the Improv, he was so nice, such a gentleman, so helpful. That's what I've noticed. And I just knew, like, if you don't have connectability, you're never going to really succeed. Like, everything depends on being able to understand people and get along with them. And I had to teach myself to do that. And so that's what the book is. It's step by step, like 9 common things that get in your way. Like, you don't have boundaries. You fill your life with jerks. You are avoidant and you don't even realize it. And I walk people through that and what you can do. And then we get into the sort of charm school time. It's like, here's how to have a conversation and how not to ruin the conversation with some very common habits that practically everybody does.
Yeah, you've said that people with trauma struggle with small talk. Why is that?
I don't know. I think a lot of people struggle with small talk. And some traumatized people overshare too much. So it's like they're so good at small talk, they can't really ever connect. But I think knowing, so my husband used to feel so anxious around people that he would freeze up. And he wrote himself a little index card that he would keep in his pocket. And it was 10 small talk things you could say at a party. And he would just say that, great weather we're having. Say it with an English accent, you know. So how do you know, Crystal? You know, just say these things. And he said nobody ever detected that he was phoning it in. And it worked really well. And soon he was easily having conversations with people. I've learned a lot from him. He's a very different person from me. He's also very well brought up, and he's taught me things. This is a piece of etiquette, is when you have something you need to tell people that you know is going to hurt their feelings, you can take about 10% of it so that they understand the essence of what's bothering you, but you don't tell them the whole thing. It will devastate them. The thoughts that I have when I'm mad at somebody are way too much to lay on somebody's emotions, unless I want to destroy them, which I don't.
Right.
So you can just tell somebody a little thing.
Huh.
Yeah. And then, so there's a thing that we do. People, when we're very preoccupied, somebody will say, I'm a little worried. I've seen the doctor and they are doing a biopsy on Tuesday and it could be serious. And when they tell me that, I go, oh, wow, that's really bad. And then I just totally forget about it. To be really connectable, you make a note of it if you have to, but call them Monday night and say, I'm thinking of you for the biopsy. I hope it goes really well. Let me know how it goes. And then follow up with them, that evening or Wednesday. Can I call you afterwards? I just want to see how you're doing, see if you need anything. Instead of ever saying to people who are having a hard time, do you need anything? Overwhelmed, sad people, they can't say it. Say, would it help if I picked up some groceries? You want to tell me 5 or 6 things that you'd really like? I'll come by. I'll bring it to you. And you don't even have to have me hang out. So I just teach common ways that you can hang in there with people. And I do include, when you go to a potluck, if you're financially in a position to, bring an entree. The people, I throw a potluck every month. And I'm a free speech zealot. I admire people who are heroes of free speech. So I have them come over. They give a talk. My free speech friends come over.
I love it.
We meet great people all the time, and it's a potluck. So I used to bring like a bag of tortilla chips and stuff. So that's how you say, I don't really think that I matter.
Wow.
Yeah. And my husband literally thinks like a half dozen of boiled eggs is a perfectly good contribution. I'm like, dude, we're a married couple. We live in a nice house. We need to bring like fried chicken, like 25 servings of it, okay?
I would call the police.
I know. So
bringing boiled eggs to a potluck?
I know.
Straight to jail.
Very English, actually. He's like, everyone loves boiled eggs, and I'm like, not really. Not when there's fried chicken.
Definitely not. Yeah. We can debunk that right here.
Yeah, maybe when we're like on some sort of restrictive diet or something, but it's the spirit of generosity and trying to connect with people through these little gestures that are hard. And I met this is another of my favorite people I ever met. A friend of mine died in her 20s, my childhood friend, and her mother and I became friends afterwards. And she had this like really shitty husband. Nobody liked him. And when she was 80, he died. And she got together with a friend whose wife had died. She had known him for decades. And he was so fabulous. She's just like, I can't believe I spent my life miserable now that I know what it's like to have somebody cherish me. And her husband's name was Dick, and he had a Rolodex, as old people did. And in his Rolodex was all his friends, and it was a calendar. It was actually, the Rolodex was organized by date on when they had special days. And every day he had 5 or 6 people to contact, to call or email and say, hey, happy birthday, or hey, I know it's the anniversary of your husband's death, and how are you doing? I was just thinking of you. And he had thousands of people who loved him. He was just like this love man. He was full of love for people, and he had a happy life. And they had 6 years together before he passed away, and she just said it was the best time of her life to be with such a person. So I admire that. I think everybody needs that. Everybody's lonely because not enough people are caring about them.
Yeah. So what is connectability? Is it basically, is it another way of saying charisma, magnetism?
That's part of it. Part of it is charisma and magnetism. A lot of it is attunement to other people, where you're attuned to yourself. If you've ever, I don't know, let's say you drink too much, you're talking too loud and you don't know it, right? You're not attuned. Attunement, so you're in touch with yourself, you're in touch with how you're being received, not to the point of being like, helplessly people-pleasing and worrying entirely about other people, but you can just feel them. Our nervous systems are connected. We're talking to each other all the time. And like I've done a few podcasts this week. I'm different with each person because I feel you, and like you and I are going in our own direction with this, And we're allowing that to happen rather than being a cookie cutter of myself and, just trying to do what I think people are supposed to do. Allowing something natural to happen requires attunement. We want to become our full and real selves. But I'll tell you, growing up with all those hippie parents who were trying to be free and be themselves, like that doesn't fly if you're selfish, if you're not attuned, and if you're not taking responsibility for yourself and for the people who depend on you. So I'm a big champion of agency, of just get your life together, fine-tune your life, become the good person that you need to be. You're not safe to be yourself until you can trust yourself not to just freak out and yell at people because you got triggered.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, attunement, I'm thinking self-awareness. I'm thinking situational awareness. I mean, it's not comfortable for me being around people who lack self-awareness.
No. Walking down the street and you can tell there's some danger ahead and you're trying to tell people, I don't think we should walk down this street. That's one of my worst things. Is when they're like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, I don't think even though I got attacked on the street, I don't think I'm weird about it.
Well, I mean, not to get morbid, but like your story, something very topical as we record this is the fairly recent murder that occurred in Charlotte, North Carolina, of the beautiful girl who was on the train and she was just ruthlessly had her life stolen from her.
Yes.
And in no way am I victim blaming, but one thing that was plainly apparent from the video was that she didn't seem to have a sense of situational awareness. She gets into into this car, the train, and was like on her phone the entire time.
Right.
That's
right. She was not attuned to the environment.
She wasn't. Yeah. And again, I'm not victim blaming. That should
not
have happened.
Not.
But
of course not.
But I definitely think that this is something that I have begun thinking about that way more in the weeks since that occurred.
When I got attacked and those 4 guys jumped out of the car, I thought of running. And I shut down that impulse. I thought it might be perceived as rude. But I did feel it. I felt the danger. And at that time, I was running about 6-7 miles a day. I totally could have run. And we were 2 blocks from the hospital where I ended up. I could have just beelined for the hospital. And I thought of it, but I didn't do it. I sort of overrode. I was walking with a male friend. And he was a brown belt in Taekwondo, and he was very proud of it. And I had said, I feel like we're in danger. And we were actually walking on the street that I asked us to walk on. So he blames me, but he got beat up too. He got beaten too. But
damn.
But I was sort of outsourcing responsibility for my intuition. It's like, well, he says it's safe, and I don't want to be rude. So I'll just stand here like a deer in the headlights and let this happen. No. And that's kind of how it happened. Now I would do it differently. I'd just be like, I think I should run. I'm going to run.
Yeah.
And that's a lot what trauma takes from you is your direct instinct for self-preservation and for red flag detection. And it just takes it away from you. It's shut down. So in my membership, when I'm sitting there on Zoom with a bunch of people and we're talking, I forbid people to talk about politics and world affairs because that's a huge distraction. Everybody gets triggered. We're not thinking about anything else. And it works really well. I promise them, like, you get more regulated, whatever it is you're trying to make better in the world, you're going to be so much more effective at it. So, and they're very good about it. And then I say, we're not going to talk explicitly about trauma. That also just kind of sends people down the rabbit hole of nervous system dysregulation. We just say, I was abused. Got it. We understand. We've got it. And then I have them ask the question that they need to do. And it's remarkable. And the other thing I forbid is you can't give unsolicited advice. They're allowed to talk to each other in the chat. There's a lot of talk, but you don't say, Sharon, you have to read this book. You're going to love it. You don't say that to people. everybody's trying to recover their agency. They're trying to recover their intuition, their discernment, and their agency. So nothing gets crammed on anybody. And I always say, don't, take me with a grain of salt. You're going to come to your own answer about this. And I think that's really important. And that is one of the hardest things about our times, when there's so many unacceptable opinions about things, and that's, in a way, that's like being in an abusive relationship. You sort of have to pretend to go along with things, and you can't question them, and you can't, you have to just go along. And then if you were to say what you think, or you say what happened, like something abusive happened, and you say what happened, it's almost like the abusive dad archetype, the drill sergeant dad who's like, hits you and then says, if you tell anybody I hit you, I'm going to hit you again, twice, that kind of thing. So I think that a lot of people are going through sort of it's like a mass traumatized state.
1,000%. I've never heard it said that way.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You're shamed for asking questions. You're shamed for expressing opinions. It's really screwed up. Wow, I never thought of it like, in terms of being in a mass scale abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's a mass scale abusive relationship with a lot of the side effects, where people shut down. Like if people can't really talk about what's real for 20 years, then it's almost like the whole culture loses that awareness. Like the whole history was forgotten. It just gets like buried under some other thing. People I believe strongly people have to be able to express themselves. They have to be themselves. I love that our country is so permissive about that in most ways, that we kind of share this ideal, most of us, like people have to be themselves. But there are a few people who are like, as long as they're like me, as long as they're like me. And that's what we have to overcome. And it's okay for everybody to be themselves if they're kind and considerate and constructive. And that's the secret. That's what I had to learn as a person. And that's probably why I feel strongly about it for everyone is you should be yourself, but just being yourself without the accompanying, I've cleaned up my side of the street. I know how to take responsibility when I make a mistake. I know how to put my needs second when somebody else needs me to pay attention to that first. Which is what makes a good parent, what makes a good partner, to be able to sort of compartmentalize your own self for a little bit there. Those are things you lose in trauma. So I feel like that's what the culture is in danger of losing, like too many people at once. We need a certain critical mass of people who can sort of hold the fort down.
That's what I'm trying to do.
That's what I'm trying to do too.
Yeah,
that's what I consider my job.
But there are these regardless, there are, and I think will always be, these evil nodes in society that come down on you for merely expressing an opinion or an alternate way of seeing an issue. Yeah. And I just think it's so screwed up.
Yeah, it's not healthy. And then it's funny because when it goes underground, like if you think something, you could tell your friends who agree with you, so at least you get to talk about it. But then all the people who were judging it, they literally believe that everybody thinks that, or that only some terrible person would think anything different than they think. And that's what I see all the time. It's like inconceivable to some people that anybody thinks differently. And that's the price that anybody, if we let ourselves be silenced. I just did a video about how you get silenced. And it's very generic. I'm not talking about any specific world situation because it applies to all of it. But it does start in childhood, the getting silenced. Don't say what's going on. My mom, okay, I'm going to give you a real world thing. My mom left me in the snow in front of a casino in Reno when I was 6. She said, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And I ended up in the police station, and 11 hours later, she found me.
Oh, my God.
There. And when I was at the police station, they were like, what is going on with your mom? And I said, it was my fault. She told me to stay right there. She had to go get something, but I went away. I went somewhere else. And I made up a lie. I knew to cover for her. And another time, I got assaulted by a bunch of kids at school when I was in 1st grade. And they hurt me. They made me bleed. It was like a sexual assault by kids. And I told my teacher. The teacher sent me all by myself to the principal's office. I was like this little girl. And I had told the teacher who did it. So those boys were assembled in the principal's office, and the principal looked at me with all the boys looking at me. Did they do this to you? And I looked at the boys, and they all were mentally sending daggers, we're going to hurt you so bad if you tell. And I said, no, it wasn't them. And the principal said, so you made this up? And I said,
Oh my God.
And so that's how it happens. And, you know, I wonder sometimes. I remember I heard a case of a particular diocese of the Catholic Church that just recently discovered 2,000 more cases of abuse. You know, they've been working really hard to get rid of that and deal with it and make it never happen again. But 2,000 cases just came out of nowhere. And I just was like, how do you even hide 2,000 cases? If parents and kids were telling you, you know, like, how do you hide it? It's like a lot of people have to just sort of like shut it down. Where did we learn to do that? So at a certain point, we have to learn, and I'm not just talking about for the sake of being silenced or speaking up. It's that too, but it's for all of our self-expression and, you know, coming into full maturity and ripeness as people and bringing our gifts into the world. Like, we cannot let ourselves die inside like that.
No.
So, and
absolutely not.
And it's not easy.
Well, it's the truth that's the most dangerous thing to say.
Yes.
And look, you don't have to agree with everybody, right? Like,
No.
I think that's the beauty of living in a pluralistic society, right?
Yeah.
Like, take Charlie Kirk, for example. I didn't agree with everything that he said. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a Jew from New York. I'm, you know, agnostic/atheist. You know, I'm pro-choice. I don't agree with him on his, you know, but all that being said, I thought he was a great guy for standing up for what he believed in and for working through his ideas by way of debate, nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
And look at the monster that our society belched up and what that individual did to him.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's trippy how many. I was one of the people, like, as soon as I heard about it, I was in New York. I was on the High Line with my son, and I looked. Even before it was on Twitter, I saw that this had happened. I thought, oh, just like a leg? I mean, what? Like, how bad? And my son and I got very anxious to hear what had happened, and we were both, like, devastated. And I kept, then, like, the rest of the day, I kept saying, you know, I knew who he was. I had some disagreements. I had just yelled about something he said, but I admired his chutzpah. And I thought he was very gracious. I saw him on Bill Maher, and Bill Maher was being kind of a dick. You know?
It's Bill Maher.
Very drunk that night, and he was so kind to him and so respectful and everything. And I remember thinking, gosh, I want to have that's connectability. I want to be able to do that with people. So he was on my mind. But when this happened, it was like a friend died. It like hit me really hard. And then I heard so many people say that there was something about it. Almost everybody said, I didn't agree with him about everything. I didn't know him that very well, but now I've heard a lot about it, and it's hitting me so hard. And somehow, I mean, I hope this leads to something good. You know, I hope this leads to greater awareness, you know, not to tear people down because they're different, because they say something different.
Amen. Your lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to strategy for calming intense emotions in the moment?
If you can do nothing else, move your body. Just move your body. That's, you know, these moments of like dysregulation, they happen so fast. You need something that you can do very quickly. So just move your body. There's things like you can get in a cold shower or hot shower, or if you can't do that, like wash your hands in cold water or hot water and just get some sensation in your hands. You can sit down really hard in your chair and go, there's my butt on the chair. That's a big butt, yeah. and you can push your tongue to the back of your teeth, just something to bring your awareness back into your body. I'm not a big, I think that, I don't think we're ever out of our bodies. I'm sort of weird. I'm from Berkeley, so I'm just you're never out of your body. You'd be dead. You know, that's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for being detached or dissociated. And I also, by the way, don't have an inner child. Just saying. I'm just through and through. I'm just Anna, same Anna I always was. Kind of childlike in a good way, you know, in the way that I was kind of mature in a good way as a kid. It's just me. So I think for myself about these things, and these are my experiences. They won't match. But I think anything you can do to feel your body. It's, you know, proprioception is a word a lot of us know about, where's my hand right now? You know, you can feel space around you, but we also need to feel time. You know how when you lose track of time, when you're dysregulated, you get late to everything because you go, okay, I have 5 minutes to goof off. And then 20 minutes later, you remember that you had to stop goofing off. That's dysregulation. Or you go into puberty at the wrong time. You know, time is part of your regulation. So the go-to is to just activate your body and go outside. Andrew Huberman's always like, look at the sun. I'm like, true enough, Andrew. The sun is telling you what time of day it is and what season it is. You know, we evolved on this planet the whole time that life has been here. And our bodies do know, they're aware of the tides and the moon and when is all this happening. And it helps to just let your body see it so that you're not totally enclosed in walls and you're not seeing it. And it'll just calibrate, a whole bunch will calibrate. But if you can exercise with people, if you can exercise something that's doing your left and right side, like calling it out, whether it's yoga or martial arts or ballroom dance or something, or the hokey pokey. Like some of these things I'm like, oh, the hokey pokey, that's what they were doing. Or marching left, right. That's re-regulating. So there's things like that. But some people are more body oriented and they're going to be fixed if they really get into Taekwondo. I'm very thinky. I'm verbal. You probably are too because you podcast, you were drawn to this. And so it's all thoughts. I ruminate. I'm muttering to myself. It's going round and round. I wake up in the middle of the night. What am I going to do? He's supposed to take a driving lesson. I'm thinking this all the time. So I need something to do with my words. And they go on paper. And it's so wonderfully simple. By the way, when you do these writings, you tear them up. They're not for anybody to see, and they're not to keep. They're not a journal. It's a dump. It's a dump to make some space in here. So that's...
Wow.
Yeah. My experience is we have a lot of healing power inside of us. And that we've had a misunderstanding about how to activate that. I don't think they even knew that it was going to be given to you by some expert before is how they thought. I'll have you talk about your childhood. You'll feel better. I would, they think, because I'm normal. And it doesn't work like that. It's to activate that healing power inside yourself, to be attuned to yourself and do all that fine-tuning of your regulation so that you can start to be a mensch.
Be a mensch.
Mm-hmm.
It made me, what I thought of immediately was cold plunging or cold showers.
Yes.
You become immediately aware of your body.
Yes,
you become acutely aware of the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Seconds count.
Well, I've always said, even without having the neuroscience to describe the mechanisms per se, like I've always said that for me, mentally, the biggest the benefits that I get from it are primarily mental. It's a state change.
Yeah.
No matter what it is that I'm going through, no matter what I'm feeling, like getting into a cold bath or even putting the shower on cold for a few seconds.
Yeah.
I feel my body, and I become acutely aware of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. One that's not instant, but eating protein with every meal, eating protein at breakfast. Like a whole bunch. Sugar is just lovely for oblivion, but it'll just wreck your day for self-regulation. It's really hard to pull back after a donut to get your day back. Yeah.
And you find that protein helps, keeps your mind off of those.
Yeah, it's a grounding food, I think. I don't know what it is exactly. I think a lot of people have found that in one way or another, but lots of us struggle with brain fog these days ever since COVID, maybe that was something to do with it, but also scrolling. Like brain fog is a huge problem for people, including me. And so
there was just a
protein
study
is our friend. You would know about that. You're good at this stuff.
Yeah, that's my wheelhouse.
This is your thing.
But no, there was literally just a study. Man, I wish I could pull it up, but I think it was published in the journal Neurology. But it was like, there are record numbers of people today that are experiencing memory complaints, brain fog, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
Brain fog's not a clinical term, but subjective memory complaints.
Yeah.
Which is...
and fatigue. That tends to go with it. This like crashing of energy. That's what happened to me last fall when all the bad things happened.
Oof.
I couldn't get through the afternoon without a nap, which has not been the case since I was a baby.
Damn. Well, you're on the right path now.
Yeah, I don't need naps anymore. I feel a lot. I'm like 80% better, gradually better. A lot of it was like losing weight, like that sudden. I was gaining like 5 pounds a month. I gained 30 pounds in 6 months. It's just a lot of heavy stuff going on.
Damn.
Yeah, but life be that way. Stuff happens sometimes, and this is what it is to have agency and to be able to manage, to self-regulate. Is you have a way of facing it and going, okay, here's what I can do. Here's what I don't know what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to learn, and now I'm going to forget about it and watch some Netflix. And just be able to handle that and not let it grab control of your thinking and your nervous system. Stuff is going to happen. So. Yeah.
Man, well, Anna, you are a beautiful person.
Oh, you are too.
I loved getting to know you, and you don't need me to tell you that. Your million subscribers on YouTube probably tell you that every day, but I think you're amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for writing Connectability. Where, and your other book, Re-Regulated, I've got one last question for you. But before we get to that, where can people find you on social media? How can they find your YouTube channel? How can they pick up your books?
Well, usually people first encounter me on YouTube, my Crappy Childhood Fairy channel. It's called Crappy Childhood Fairy. It's really called that. Hopefully it's clear. This is not therapy. This is something quite different. And it's also the name of my website, crappychildhoodfairy.com. So you can find out all the offerings that I have. I have a team also who works with me on that. And the books are available literally everywhere online and in many bookstores. There's so few bookstores now. I can't really guarantee that you can find one there. But usually, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, support your local bookstore or go to Amazon. And if you go to Amazon, leave a review. That's like
helpful, yeah.
Yeah. Algorithmic gold.
Yeah, help an author out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's the thing. If you leave reviews, the Amazon algorithm picks it up and goes, this book is important. The number of reviews and the positivity of them, they will push it out there to people who have never heard of the book. It's just like YouTube or anything. So if anybody really cares about wanting other people to know about this, and I think almost everybody who's had trauma does care, everybody instinctively wants to share. That's a way you can make sure people hear about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I tell people to leave ratings and reviews for the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a free way to support. It takes seconds to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you've gotten any value from your work, mine, I mean, it's the literally the least you can do for a creator.
Yeah, and kind comments. I read every comment, and they make my day. They do.
Aw.
Yeah.
You're so sweet. And I'm sorry for all the strife that you've had, but it sounds like you are doing exactly what your purpose is to do on this planet.
It's better now.
Yeah.
It's better now. I'm really glad.
Well, the last question that gets asked to everybody on the show is, what does living a genius life mean to you?
A genius life?
Yeah.
You mean like this a genius life? Okay, hold on, let me think. You hit me by surprise. Okay. You know how some people feel like they have imposter syndrome? I've never had that. If anything, I felt a little underestimated, a little bit squashed. And because of my techniques, I get full-on downloads sometimes when I'm meditating every morning. I have to have huge amounts of paper and pen around me. I have to jot things down and be able stuff comes to me. This is my zone of genius. And for the first time in my life, it's unfettered. I have access to my zone of genius. And I get ideas that I don't even know where they came from. I don't even know where some of these ideas came from. And when I get feedback on YouTube that says, how do you even figure this out? It's like you read my diary. And so I'm confident that I've tapped into something that's unusual, where I have an uncanny understanding of what it's like to have this and describe it. And so personally, that is my zone of genius, and my days are dedicated to this. I try to use it. It's not always there. Like if I have an argument with my husband, it's gone, the world is bad. But I know what to do. I know how to get back into it and just plug in and try to be that person. And I enjoy other people who are creative in any way who are doing that too. And I can tell when they're doing it. I detect it in other people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in my zone of genius.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily every moment of every day, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
more often than not.
That'd be wild. I was reading The Creative Act.
It rings a bell. I'm not familiar, though.
I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong Rubin. This is the wrong author. Help me out.
No. Rick Rubin? No.
No, the one who was the music producer for Ye.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Rick?
I think so.
Maybe, yeah.
I think so.
I only know one other Rubin. That's Dave Rubin, and
There's Dave Rubin. He's different.
He's different.
But now anyway. Oh God, help me. Let's look this up so we can edit this in and not put him down here by forgetting
Rubin?
his name.
Well, he's done the podcast.
The Creative Act.
Yeah.
He's done your podcast and you're not sure?
No, not mine. No, he hasn't done mine. The Creative Act, A Way of Being, book by Rick Rubin.
Okay. So I had to have a ton of dental work last year, and I just put these in the headphones and I was on laughing gas. My teeth are really damaged. I got them all fixed. It's a long process. And I just found laughing as I listened to that book. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy's a genius. But he's all about like tapping in, tapping into that creative consciousness that's like ideas are going to come. And if you're receptive to them, you can be the holder of that idea. And if you're shut down, somebody else will have to do it. And that's what makes me really grateful. It's like, no, I'm here. Ideas. I'm here for you. I'm here. Sign me up.
Wow. I'll have to check that book out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. Well, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anna Runkle, you're the best.
Yeah. It's really nice to meet you in person.
Same. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that may benefit from it. And, I'm feeling inspired.
Yeah.
I will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.